Hey guys, it's Ben with Appliances Unboxed. We're talking about going to a retail store today. When you go there, how are you finding your information when it comes to the appliances? Let's talk about that today between me, Scott, and Matt. I'm working on videos for the GE front load washing machines, the one that have the Microban antimicrobial systems, and we are finding mold in the Microban systems because the detergent usage is so high that mold is fine. It's basically, it's not on the
Like a top
Microban,
layer, yeah.
it's on the detergent. So I'm having to do videos on this because people are overusing or
Too
using the
much.
wrong detergents in those microban units, and they're still getting mold. Not because the microban isn't working, but it's the use patterns on consumers are just so poor and unhygienic on front loaders. It's coming back.
But it's even an issue on top loaders because I can tell you I've seen the same thing in a microban top loader. Like, yes, GE came up with a brilliant concept of using microban plastics inside the machines, but no amount of antimicrobial plastic is going to fix stupid.
Well, you can't cake something, you can't layer something on top of it
Exactly.
and then have mold on top of that and blame the
manufacturer, but that's the problem. People do. They instinctively blame the manufacturer of the product when it doesn't do the thing they want it to do. And they ignore the fact that they've misused the product for 5, 7, 10 years. And that's why they're in the boat they're in. It can't possibly be that they did something wrong. It's all about the design of the product. And that's the struggle for us in retail and for appliance manufacturers, is trying to contend with, well, how is our customer going to completely misuse our product and ignore everything we tell them?
Yeah, and that's going to be a very interesting use case or pushback maybe from people, because where I'm at in it, I'm starting to see how super useful auto dispensing is as a feature, because then you're not worrying about people overusing too much detergent or using the wrong kinds. But the other side of it is, are people going to clean them properly under a proper use and care cycle, or are they going to get jammed after 2 or 3 years and then say, well, this sucks, it's because auto dispensers suck? And it's not because auto dispensers are bad, it's because you're failing to maintain the product at all.
I feel like the repair industry could really step up and fill that void, because it's not just like the auto dispense, just that's the only thing that needs routine maintenance that's not happening. With all the 2-in-1s and all that stuff, the condenser coils needing cleaned and all that stuff. I mean, it's almost like appliance maintenance went away for a while and then now it's back in full swing and needs a solution. I feel like it's the repair industry that could really step up and solve that. Like personally, like I'm not gonna take apart a condenser and a 2-in-1 front load washer dryer. I'm not going to take that apart and clean it out. I'd rather a tech do it.
I just did it. It's not for the faint of heart. Actually, so I think I've devised the perfect system for maintaining these things, and Ben and I were talking about it offline when I figured it out. So there's a few companies that make it, but I bought one particular product. It's no rinse condenser cleaner for air conditioning systems. And so what I did was I took the frame of the lint filter out of my LG combo and then sprayed into the condenser compartment this foam. And I did it probably 4 or 5 times, emptied about half the can, wiped any liquid residue that came out, and then ran a self-clean cycle. That thing was 100% back to the way it was when it just came out of the packaging as far as drying performance.
That's good news, because I remember watching Ben's the GE 2-in-1, the ultra fast teardown whenever you first came out with it. Which, by the way, I think you were the first person that had that for like months and months and months on the market.
Yeah.
But how many screws did that thing need just to get to the coils? You remember?
The question on the coils is how jury rigged are you going to do that process? There are ways officially it's about 55 screws, but you could probably do a few things with the control boards to bypass a few of those screws.
Take
to
out
probably
whole chunks, versus
get it down to about 35, screws roughly if you knew what you were doing. Because even as the whole issue was when I did that video, I did that one shot on camera in one day, and I just had the GE manual beside me and a little like fishing lure compartment, and I'm just pulling screws out and doing exactly as the manual says to access the heat pump to swap. Well, really what I did was it was me how to swap the heat pump, but I wanted to pull everything off to expose the coils because that's really what I wanted to do, was to see the coils. And as I'm doing everything, I'm thinking there are like 5 or 6 ways I could not do this, but I'm going to show everything on camera because this is what GE is officially telling technicians to do, and I don't want to run afoul of what GE says at the time. But yeah, there's a few ways you could bypass it. However, it's a little bit shoddy or questionable, and I didn't want to advise anyone
I
improperly.
mean, that's why I contend LG has the best all-in-one, because you can literally get to see the coils and spray the spray foam into the coils without removing more than 8 screws. And you can do it all from the top of the appliance.
One thing you don't show in that breakdown is whenever you take all those screws out, you had a fancy screw compartment that you are sticking, this type of screw goes into that bucket and in this bucket. Well, whenever we first took those apart, we didn't have that fancy storage compartment. So you didn't show the additional 30 minutes of trying the wrong screw 10 different times because they're all different lengths and thicknesses and thread counts.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, I actually did everything quite responsibly on camera the first time putting them back in because I did have it arranged. And what I did really was behind the scenes, I just went over all my camera footage. So I knew the camera footage on what went in and what went out. So I just referred to the camera
Oh
while I
yeah,
was putting
cheat
it back
sheet.
in.
That's
Yeah,
smart.
Uh,
That's
that's
smart.
all I did for it. But when I did it like the second or third or fourth time was when I started getting lazy on it. And then I
yeah.
started trying to, I was using the magnetic cup holders and putting 3 or 4 sets of screws in them to just get it done so I could advance that to the next part of the test. But
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. But then you end up with like 5 extra screws and you're looking at everything. You're like, I don't, where do these go?
And GEs are very notorious in that way because they have the plastics, the screws for the plastic, the screws for the metal, the ones that are plastic to metal. So there's like 5 or 6 different styles, whereas on say a Samsung bespoke or an LG, there's like 2. They really engineered their systems a lot better to where those screws were far more interchangeable.
Mm-hmm. I could see that.
I think in general in laundry, we're always going to be fighting this battle of customers not wanting to use the way the product it was designed to be used. And manufacturers are fighting this battle of, well, okay, how do we engineer our products to account for people not being willing to read the instruction manual? That's why we're seeing the evolution we're seeing in appliances. That's why the 2-in-1 has even become a thing. That's why you see auto dispensing systems being pervasive in laundry products. That's why you see ice makers moving from the through the door water and ice dispenser into the freezer. That's why you see all these design changes. And some people are like, oh, we're reverting back, or oh, we're over computerizing. But the manufacturers are in this constant struggle to overcome people's unwillingness to read the manual. And that's really why we're seeing the changes we're seeing. And it brings a lot of benefits. Like the integration of AI into laundry, I think is probably the single greatest improvement that's been made in laundry technology in a long time. But the reason AI was integrated into laundry was to power the auto dispensing systems, was to power heat pump drying in an all-in-one. It was to give the machine enough of a brain that it could take over for the consumer thinking through how to use the product every time they approach it.
I think that filters back to when I did the poll on my YouTube channel and asked people what modes you used on a dishwasher or a washing machine. And we found that it was what 60 to 70% people were choosing to use the normal modes instead of the specialized modes that would be far more appropriate in different situations. And then on the other side, when we did the cooking, when we asked people what they used for cookware, we actually got a very robust answer from people that they were using very specialized items to cook with. because they knew what they wanted to cook, how they wanted to eat. But then when it comes to the dishwasher and washer, they're just, pressing the power button, pressing the start button, and after they've dumped their clothes in haphazardly.
Yeah.
And then they're wondering why the machine is going unbalanced, or why it's not cleaning right. That's the big one. It doesn't clean the stains right. And it's like, well, what do you do to make sure that it was going to clean properly in the first place?
Did heavy duty ever make a comeback on your poll for the
Nope.
dishwashers? Ah,
Never,
that's
never. And
crazy.
I was very disappointed. It ended, I think, at about 2,500 results, and it didn't change.
Change, it doesn't happen overnight. If there's a new feature, there's a new function. Like it's gonna take, like I am not an early adopter. I will let other people try things and see how it goes and get feedback, and then, I'll make my own decision, based on their feedback to try it myself. But what you got? Is that the result?
Yeah, this is the results.
I guess we should expand on that though a little bit, because I think, Scott, you are the microcosm of a lot of appliance consumers. Like, why do you have a discomfort or a inability to trust new features or new functionality? Like, why do you struggle with that?
Like, why do I need to try something brand new when the old thing works? Like, why do we need to introduce, all the things if what I'm doing right now, works for what I need? And I feel like a lot of people are that way too. Like, I feel it from a lot of the customers that come into our store. They have something that they liked and they want to repeat. Like, case in point, whenever I go to the shoe store, I just tell them what model shoe I want and what size I am and what colors not to be. And I get the same shoes over and over and over and over again because it works. Like, I don't want to try something that could go bad. I don't want to try something that might break my ankle, or I don't know. Like, don't you think the general public's like that too? Like, I'm not a freak. Like, I think this is,
I mean, I will tell you, in my experience, it's been very rare that I haven't been able to have a conversation with somebody and get them to understand the value of what's out today versus what was out the last time they shopped for an appliance.
in certain categories, I would agree that in certain categories of products, like, I could be coached through exploring differences, but I would need that extra push. I would need someone to tell me why or to show it to me in a realistic way. Otherwise, I'm going to default back to what I had last time.
I wish we went back to the days where Maytag's claim to convert people was just have a machine in the hardware store and just run the friggin' thing all day long.
Yeah, forever.
They bypass the timer, let the thing just keep running. When their pitch was a reliability, it was fill out this survey, tell us how long you think it's going to last running night and day at the hardware store. And if you're the closest person gets a gift certificate for $100 off a brand new Maytag.
Yeah.
I'd love to see, a store do that, and with an auto dispenser, challenge people to answer the question, how much detergent are you using versus how much do you think you need? Pour a measure into a beaker. Don't show people how much you really need until the very end, and then show, hey, you're probably using 3 times as much detergent as you should be, and this is why you use an auto dispenser.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think the proof's in the pudding. And honestly, like, that's why this is so cool. That's why, like, Ben, what your channel does is so interesting to me, because, like, you are that display. This podcast having 3 unique perspectives on an industry, like, it's on trial. Like, this conversation we're having right now, it's not being had anywhere else. Like, no one's talking about having 3 unique perspectives on a product or an industry or whatever. It's just all one-sided. It's just it's just Matt. It's just Matt's just out there, like, on all the videos, it's just him out there. There's no other side to it where you can.
I mean, I'm not just an ascot wearing pitch man, okay?
Yeah, it's just the sales pitch is out there, and, like, that's all you get. Like, you walk into a big box store and you just get, like, whatever they were told to say, whatever the manufacturers told them to say. You know, and that's not shopping, that's not browsing. That's someone trying to sell you something.
There's more nuance to the big box conversation because it's not just that we
Spoken like a
were
true big box salesman.
no, it's actually a huge negative. I'm about to drop like a huge negative that I don't think you really ever realized was a problem in big box. So in big box, right, we have training materials, we have access to manufacturer representatives, we have access to all these lovely things. There's no time to actually consume that information. The vast majority of big box salespeople do their jobs based completely on bias and feel. They more often than not are ill equipped to sell the products that they're supposed to sell, and they revert
That's it.
back to the
Any
things they
industry.
know.
That's any industry. That's not just appliance sales.
Yeah.
That's car sales. That's pen salesman. That's literally everything.
But you go into your average Home Depot and you say, I need a new washer and dryer. I'm buying a new house. If it's an old guy, he's going to show you a top loader. If it's a young person, they might show you a front loader. It's
Yeah.
going to break down on age and experience lines. They're going to show you the thing they understand. If you say, hey, I need a refrigerator, they're going to show you a GE or a Whirlpool. They're not going to take you to a Samsung if they're an older salesperson. If they're a younger salesperson, they're only going to show you LG and Samsung. Like, it's going to come down to their age, their experience, their entire demographic profile is what's going to dictate what you're shown by that salesperson more often than not when you walk into a big box store. And that's really unsettling when you think about how expensive of a purchase you're making, and that's why this whole thing is so important.
It blows my mind, like the way that you just described, like that out of box process that big box, falls into, but they're still capturing a huge majority of these sales out there when there's small box or even just mom and pop shops out there that have that experience level already. And in many cases, if you walk into one of those stores, you might be talking to the owner or you might be talking to someone that's closely related to him with tons of experience versus someone who's just plugging a hole, because they were hiring for $17 an hour that day. You can literally probably get the same price, if not a little bit better, by going to a mom and pop. I don't know why we're like, as a country, kind of fallen away from that. We go towards the easy button, whenever a better solution's out there.
You want a really crazy story that might just warp that whole perception too? So, I did an experiment during Black Friday, Black November season last year when I was still in retail. And I went on Reddit and I started answering people's appliance questions. Do you know how much I sold in the month of November to customers from Reddit all over the United States?
We had national fulfillment, so yeah, I can
A, I
imagine.
had national fulfillment. That's true. But think about it this way. These people were so lost for anybody that would just give them a straight answer. They were willing to trust a complete random stranger on Reddit
Reddit.
to transact a $30,000, $40,000 kitchen package.
What was your handle? What was
He
your
doesn't
name on
want us
there?
to know what his history is.
I am gonna keep that quiet because my blue and yellow employer wasn't thrilled with that experiment, but it did work.
I had a commission bonus available from YouTube itself. In the affiliate world for online, YouTube has a program that I'm enrolled in at the most elite tier, and they offered me this super massive incentive. It was like I was earning my affiliate income if I was making a sale for Lowe's, Home Depot, Best Buy, Samsung, LG, whoever I could get the affiliate for. But YouTube popped in and said, we're going to give you an extra 15% on every sale you make beyond what Lowe's is going to give you, beyond what Samsung's going to give you. And I did one Black Friday video, and that Black Friday video did enough sales for me to crest and get that bonus. And I got the commission check. I actually just got the commission check last week, and it was about $20,000.
So now we're redoing your kitchen. Got it.
Yep.
Ben, you've taught me more about appliances than any manufacturer's training has ever taught me. That's how bad it is if you're a salesperson. That's how bad it is if you're big box. And honestly, in a lot of cases, like mom and pop isn't so great either. Like you as a
Isn't.
shopper and as a consumer have to really discriminate who you're going to make your purchase with, and it's a lot of factors that add into that. Like in where I was from in Pennsylvania, we had a couple good mom and pops and we had a
Mhm.
couple really really bad mom and pops.
You have to do your
So like
research. Yeah.
you got to do research, you got to understand who you're dealing with at like a deep level. It's not
It doesn't
you have
take that much research to figure out who's good and who's bad,
well, it
especially on that
does
level.
because you can have a great experience with someone that knows absolutely nothing.
Yeah, just at big
Just sold
box,
you the worst product for you possible.
just at big box, you just know consistently what you're going to get every time. It's, you know,
That's not
it's
true either. I came from big box.
no, I've never gone to Home Depot and bought a saw and didn't get anything but a saw, but I've never had an impressive experience buying a saw. You know, like you know exactly what you're going to get, and they're always going to deliver exactly that, but it's never more, it's never less. There's something to that, but I feel like just a little bit of research, you can find those overachiever, you know, mom and pops out there that really do care.
Yes,
They are
absolutely.
out there.
They are.
And it takes time to figure out who they are and what they what they sell, because like the mom and pop I bought my Speed Queens from, I mean, she was really good. They were really good on answering Speed Queen questions if I had any. But then I flipped over to the next aisle and it was and they were one of the first Frigidaire dealers in the entire US. I think they've been a Frigidaire dealer for like 80 years. And I was asking the lady that owned the store very specific questions about the Frigidaire quad doors they just came out with, because they were tie built, and I was having questions about it, and it was deer in headlights, man. And
Mm-hmm.
she had been running that store for 40 years.
Can you
I mean,
imagine like running a
and
store and then Ben comes in as the customer and starts asking hundreds of like in-depth questions?
well, I wanted my Speed Queen FF7, and they didn't have any FF7s. They had to custom order it from the warehouse and get it delivered to their store so I could pick it up.
They're expensive to floor. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty common, I think.
I don't doubt that, but then they weren't able to answer any questions that I had about the product, which is fine. It was okay, but then I'm thinking, man, there's a gap, because I could, if I was on their floor, I could have sold them, because I've sold a lot of them since I made the video. I know the pitch, but like you said, a lot of people come to I get a lot of comments from people that are saying I work at Lowe's or Home Depot and I'm using some of your content to pitch to my customers now. Or a few of the mom and pops I know, if they have some of the models in, they're using my videos for the reviews.
You know, it would be awesome is if you could offer a service where you you market to appliance store owners and you secret shop them, but fully dressed in your full kit, and you break down how good their salespeople were compared
Yeah.
to like your
What I
encyclopedia knowledge.
The one thing that I would love to do, I am doing very well with Lowe's sales right now as an affiliate. I have won multiple awards with Lowe's.com, and they keep sending me all this stuff saying, "Oh, Ben, you're doing so great." My hope is that at some point I can build up enough social capital with Lowe's to where I can just go take my Maytag uniform, but throw the Lowe's vest on and just be like, I want to be a Lowe's employee for a day.
Or
Let
just
me
own
get
a
on the
Lowe's
floor.
store.
Let me just get on the floor and just start selling some appliances and seeing what I can make in a day.
I think that
Just
would be really
commission.
cool.
But have cameras and just kind of go through the shopping experience with people too, to just kind of see what are the other Lowe's employees doing. Because I mean, the reality, the devil's advocate here, when I was in my local Lowe's getting content, they were pulling people from other departments to come handle customers at the appliance area. And I'm thinking, if you're in
Hardware
kitchen,
or
yeah, if you're in
flooring.
hardware or flooring, if that's really your department, hopefully you do have training there. You're not going to know anything about an appliance other than maybe say, well, make sure it's the right size for your
Yeah, they
kitchen.
just need a body. They need an
I
order
mean, to
taker.
be honest, though, I have a lot of friends that work for Lowe's, and that is the way it goes. Lowe's appliances at Lowe's are a necessary evil to their continued existence. They are not a core business focus. And so, because of that, they don't, they consistently struggle to staff that department with people that actually know something. And it's sad because they are America's #1 appliance retailer, but it's almost like they don't even want to be.
It's wild.
Yeah, I think there's levels to that. Like, so that exactly what you just said could also apply to almost every industry, where just
Mhm.
because they're specialized and they sell a certain product category and they're really high volume at doing it, by default, like there's not that many appliance salesmen in the world. Like, how many people with appliance sales history are really out there, and how many of those people mesh well with the big box store environment? There's a lot that goes into that. But I think it's also interesting that if you did that scenario, Ben, where you put on that vest and you went into the appliance aisle and you went with the determination of education first, selling second, I think that you would see that a lot of the salespeople would actually outperform you,
Probably.
because like that type of order taking environment type, I mean, not an order taker, right? Someone walking in and taking an order. But if it really worked, if your conversion rate really doubled by having this wealth of information, I guarantee you they would put the effort into doing it. But I feel like all that additional information makes it very complicated to make a precise decision and feel like you're making the right decision at scale.
Yeah.
What
And
do
I
y'all
mean,
think?
I would want to go into it almost and say, let me try 2 or 3 different strategies of sales and see what works the best.
Yeah.
If I could do it, I could be smarter, but could I really be better?
Well, that was like the bifurcated existence that I used to live at my former employer.
Like if you come up to me in the sales aisle and you use a word like bifurcated,
Well, if you're coming up to me in my sales aisle, you're looking at, $1,000 kitchen. So yes, I will use the word bifurcated. You won't walk out spending less than 10 grand. So you make your choice, but I will use the word bifurcated.
better at financing.
We do 24 months, no interest. But no, seriously, though, like every retailer has their own philosophy about how to conduct the appliance business. Lowe's, it's very scattered, it's very erratic. There's a lot of order taking because they genuinely don't have the resources to staff the demand. And the resources that they do have don't have the time to participate in training. And so you have a lot of people on the floor working off of feel and past experiences, and oh, that didn't go good that one time, so I'm not going to sell that again. It's very vibe based. Same thing at Home Depot. I have friends who work for Home Depot, and it's the same kind of concept over there where you don't have the time to learn and you don't have the time to participate in anything more complicated than, oh, you need a refrigerator, okay, here's a refrigerator, bye bye. At Best Buy, we had two totally different philosophies depending on how the store was originally intended and designed. In areas where we knew that there was a high density of wealth, we had specific sales departments that were tailor made to selling you a full appliance package, extracting the maximum amount of value out of the sale, and giving you the most complete experience humanly possible. And then you had regular Best Buy stores where it was very much a Home Depot Lowe's experience where everybody sells everything and we all just, oh, you need a fridge? Okay, here's a fridge. Okay, goodbye. So we had this kind of split mind about things where if
Yeah,
a
one's a tailored
geography,
experience and one's a transaction.
right, and like, oh, okay, you're trying to spend money. Okay, well, if you're in the right geographic location, you're going to find people that know how to help you do that. If you're not, you're going to find the random order taker that's so stressed out because they've got 3 customers waiting in TVs and another customer waiting in cell phones, and they need to get through with you as quickly as humanly possible. So, like, it exists in big box, just not in the way anybody would conceptualize it.
There's, and there's I'm sure there's always going to be little highlights. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's always just pockets of brilliance everywhere. So we're not, somewhere there's a guy that works for Lowe's and he's watching this and he's going, screw you guys. I am the best. So not you, man, but just generalizing here.
I mean, Ben, when you're selling in your store, like, how are you actually approaching the conversation of helping somebody choose their next appliance?
I'm trying to help them choose what I have in stock, I guess. I mean, it's always being small box and having limited inventory currently. I have to make my suggestions entirely constrained in what I have, because if I can't make the sale, then, I'm not telling them to go to Lowe's or Best Buy to go get something else, or at least trying not to. So I try to listen to what they want and then use whatever knowledge I have with what I have in stock, to hopefully guide them to the best of what I have, but it's going to be what I have. If that requires me trying to sell someone that wants a top loader on a front loader or vice versa, then I have to do it because I got to make the money. But I try to listen to them. I try to educate as best as I can. And I'm certain that I will go overboard listening and talking to them to try to educate them. But I don't have to be in a situation like a Lowe's where I'm having 10,000 people come in a day. I'm able to just, have 2 or 3 customers at a time and try to help them out. But when I've been in the situations where I've had to juggle multiple people, I do try to shift the pitch to where I go from education mode to sell and get the orders processed, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to have any inventory left regardless. So I'm just going to try to get them in and out the door as best as I can with something hopefully that is a little bit better to match what they want. But there's only so far that's going to go. But on a slow day, sure, I'll talk their ear off and make them the smartest customer in the state of Ohio. But you know,
Yeah. I mean, so like in our retail store, I'd always try and put people into buckets. So I'd try and figure out what that person like. So if you walk in for a refrigerator, I would try and figure out what the bucket is that's important to you and then make sure it's the right bucket first, but then, sell the bucket itself and show them all the bucket options that they could fit into. Young Scott would try and give them all the information I possibly could about the category of appliance that they're looking for. And they would get information overload and they would go, I don't know what to get at this point because I know everything about, what this guy's telling me now. And it just complicated the whole process.
yeah, you don't want to give them analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of young salesmen do that
Yep, for sure.
if they're passionate about what they do, I guess.
I think we've all done that at some point where we've over processed what we're trying to do and the customer just can't make a decision anymore because they are so confused that they really just can't function anymore.
Yeah, I really feel like this process that we're talking about right now between us is something that lives separate from the retail store. So like if you're shopping for an appliance and you dive into information like what we talk about here, what Ben talks about on his channel, and you just hang out there for a while, there's no sales pitch, no one's selling you anything. You can just absorb information at your own pace, at your own will, come up with your own decisions, and then go have that transaction. That's really the best shopping experience in my mind, but no one really does that. No appliance store has, I mean, to my knowledge, exactly what we just talked about. You have a information bucket that you can hang out in for a while and then, okay, cool, you're ready to buy something, go here. They're always blended together into one thing. And I feel like that's the future of shopping for anything, is that process. Someday Best Buy will have those two separate buckets next to each other. They may already have it. I don't know. They're probably working on it right now.
I mean, that's what Matt talked about with like the Best Buy labs. Myron Golden calls it pre-indoctrination. He has a YouTube video, and I don't know if I've discussed that here in this podcast, but he's a salesman. And my brother, my brother owns a giant roofing company. He has all these businesses, and he sent me a text. He said, if you ever watch one sales video, go watch this one by Myron. And he's talking all about pre-indoctrination, about how making a YouTube video, making any sort of information to educate the buyer before the
Value.
buying experience is the most important thing that you can do. And I know with what I do, that's really what I want to do, is pre-indoctrinate people, is so that they have that education before the experience and not during the experience, because then they can go in knowing, I know a little bit about this. I know what I want. Help me pick from these 4 choices, instead of saying, I need a washing machine of these 40. Which should I pick? Because you're not going to sell at that point.
Yeah. They're adding actual value. Like they're not just pushing their sales down our throat. You evil big box store doers.
Yeah. And Myron's point on why pre-indoctrination is important is, if you indoctrinate the person with the good value, then you're the one that's going to get the commission. You're going to make the sale. His whole pitch was, I don't care. Or his thing was, I'm using YouTube so I can sell courses, because I know if people trust me and believe me, I'm going to sell that course, not the other guy down the street. And he laid it out in like a 35-minute video. Very powerful stuff. But it made me realize where I am in the YouTube game, or in the appliance game, that if I provide the right value at the right point, that's where I win against big box or other YouTube content creators, for example.
Cool. Well, any other points on what we've talked about you guys want to cover? I feel like we talked about a lot.
I think so too. I think today was a good podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for following along. This has been another episode of Appliances Unboxed. And if you're shopping for a washer dryer, head over to Ben's channel and dig a little bit deeper into the hows and the whys. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.